League of Ireland pod.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the refreshingly alcohol-free Rockshore 00. Get the facts. Be drink aware. Visit drinkaware.ie.
All right, you're welcome along to the League of Ireland podcast. Nathan with you this week. Vinny Perth in studio. How are you?
I'm very, very good.
Gareth McGlynn, will we ever see him again? How are you, Gareth? Yeah, don't even have his microphone on.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe we don't even need him. Are you there, Gareth?
Oh, what happened there?
Don't know. Technical difficulties to start the show. How's everybody?
Sweet. Can you hear me, man? All right.
We can hear you loud and clear now. Yeah, Gareth, we can hear you loud and clear. So tomorrow night we have full live and exclusive national radio commentary of Bohemians against Drogheda United in the League of Ireland Premier Division. So it is second against fourth. The draw between Bohemians and Derry means that, Shamrock Rovers are totally in control of the title race, despite, it seems, not having had a league game in about 6 months at this stage. So Rovers on 49 points, Bohemians 7 points back in 42, Derry on 41 and Drogheda on 38. All those teams have now played the same amount of games. So Stephen Doyle and Richie Towell will be on commentary. We're live on News Talk from 7 o'clock tomorrow night. We'll also keep a close eye on what's happening down at Turner's Cross, where bottom of the table Cork City take on Galway United. Then on Saturday it is Sligo Rovers against Shelburne, and on Sunday it is Waterford against St. Patrick's Athletic, and maybe Shamrock Rovers against Derry City. We just don't know yet. We won't know until tonight, because there's a possibility that game may have to be called off, depending on not what happens with Shamrock Rovers, who are all but through, obviously, out of their game, but I think they're going to be playing a team from Latvia, and if the two Latvian teams progress, they're going to have to go over there on Tuesday night, so that Derry game will be called off. And they just don't take into account Gareth McGlynn, who has weekend plans. He's a busy man. He needs to know whether he's making the trek down or not.
Yeah, I'd love to be making the trek down. I think the whole league would as well. I mean, I don't know when it's going to be rescheduled for, and I know Stephen Bradley's going crazy that the league should be extended, but you'd need a bit of prep time, wouldn't you? I mean, we all want, obviously, Rovers going through as many rounds as possible, but you also want an exciting title race, and we need one of the pack to turn up and start pushing Rovers a wee bit further in this race.
So you think there might have been an opportunity for Derry if this game goes ahead, with Rovers having one eye on Europe?
Yeah, and the form that Derry are kind of in as well. I mean, they've one loss and one draw and a lot of wins in the last 7 or 8 games. So, and I know, listen, Rovers are 4-0 up from the first game against the Gibraltar St. Joseph's, but I would have liked to have seen Derry going up and put on a good performance. They basically have everyone fit. So they're chomping at the bit, and I think they need this game sooner rather than later, because I think the longer it goes on, possibly the further Rovers could pull away.
So you mentioned Stephen Bradley's comments, and these aren't new comments for Stephen Bradley. He's brought this up consistently over the last couple of years around the league season needing to be extended, and we have this strange scenario where sort of 2/3 of the season are crammed into the first half. The summer, despite the fact the league is ongoing, it feels like it sort of dies away, because you don't have the biggest teams generally playing, because they've played on their Monday nights and then they're off for extended periods. And, you've Drogheda United, because of what happened with Europe, having, 2 games in basically 5-6 weeks. And it feels like the momentum stalls for the league, but also the momentum stalls for the players as well. I don't know if the two are connected. So in terms of, I saw Neil O'Riordan putting the stats up as to how it compares to other leagues. The Scottish Premiership runs for 289 days. The English Premier League runs for 283 days. The Championship for 268, and the League of Ireland Premier Division for 261. So a week less than the Championship, but 3 weeks less than the Premier League and a month less than the Scottish Premiership. What impact would extending the league have, considering, as Stephen Bradley points out, all of the teams in the Premier Division are now full-time, paying 52 weeks of the year wages, whereas that's not the case in the First Division?
I think there's a couple of reasons. I was actually playing when we switched from sort of winter football to summer football, so there was a couple of reasons that were given for it, and ultimately it was around Europe was sort of one of the key driving factors. The other one was in terms of the pitches and the state of the pitches and the money that was going into the pitches, and it is difficult to go to some League of Ireland venues, or a lot of League of Ireland venues, is fair to say, when the weather's not good. So I think you'd have to extend it into sort of November time if you extended it. So you're heading into, and then come the end of the season, we've seen some of the FAI Cup finals. I remember being at some of those FAI Cup finals in November, and I tell you what, like, I think my dad got pneumonia out cup final in 2017. Believe it or not, it was so cold, and then venues are really difficult. So replicate or see that out in sort of some of the stadia we have. That there's a reason why we switched to summer football, but this year wouldn't make a blind bit of difference if the season was extended by, say, 3 weeks, because everyone in the Premier Division is full time. There is a certain, it's easy to throw that out, but you also have to remember when you make that comment is, if, for example, you have somebody on that his contract finishes this year, clubs will say pay him for a 1 year contract that ends on the last game of the season. So it's not technically 52 weeks, but by and large, I don't think the finance is a big issue to extend it by 3 or 4 weeks, because most people are under contract. So I did say a couple of weeks ago, I feel like you don't really, and I have had as a manager, made some complaints around Europe. I don't feel you've overly a leg to stand on. Playing every 3 days or 4 days around this time of the year is part of the norm. You should expect it. I actually think the mistake we're making, and it's a little bit rich of us to come out with this, but in the first round or two, we're almost getting through at ease that it's the next couple of weeks we need league games called off, not like round one, because Irish sides are getting through round one comfortably, and that was the problem. We weren't a couple of years ago.
And that, I assume, feeds into what Stephen Bradley is talking about, because you'd have to expect it's going to become more common that Irish teams are going to get into the Conference League, and they ended up in a scenario last year where they're playing their most important games of the year in Europe with nothing happening domestically. Now, even an extension of a week earlier and a week later, it feels like it won't make a huge difference, but maybe it does. And I know there's complications. There's an international break in November, and suddenly actually extending the league by a couple of weeks there means extending it by 3 weeks potentially, and there's the gap in the middle. And
they also ran into trouble with the FAI Cup final, because it runs into that sort of November window where the rugby is played in the Aviva Stadium. I know that was a problem as well at different stages. So there is some things that are causing a problem. And then if you go a week or two early, it's really the worst weather in Ireland is sort of January, February, March, as we all know. And then pre-season starts before Christmas. So there is little bits and pieces. Like, we also think we've got rid of the League Cup for a lot of these teams as well, which I think is a mistake. I think it's very easy to play the League Cup and, make it that at least 10 of your match day squad has to be from your under 20 squad registered and different things like that. So I think it's finding the balance with it all. I think it's very easy to say that. I understand where Stephen Bradley's coming from, but there is sort of complications, to be fair to the FAI.
Yeah, and listen, I would support that. I think the League Cup, and again, I know it's putting more games in there, and it's not solving the issue that we're talking about. But I think the League Cup's got to come back in there with some sort of competitive cup as a third option. The other one is I agree with Vinny on the November thing, but you've got to go early. If you look at all the teams this year, beginning pre-season, they all came back in early December. They didn't wait until Christmas and then get the players back. They were all done doing running sessions first 2 weeks in December. So why not start it? I know the weather's bad, but you look at the standard of the pitch. It's funny, when me and you were playing, when we went from 1/3 to we didn't get really any break that year. It was just basically one season into another season, and it was fine for us. But the other thing, the pitches weren't that bad, and look at the quality of the pitches now.
Don't look back in rose tinted glass with green tinted glass. Go back to Tolka Park.
Well, I was in Tolka Park last Wednesday night and walked across the pitch after the game, and it is perfect. Yeah, and I was asking Mossy Quinn, I was like, what have you done? Like, how have you, compared to the first couple of nights of the season when we were there, and you're nearly killing yourself slipping at the end of the game because it's just muck.
And now, to be fair, groundsmen can't do any work in the off season, and Shells did do a certain amount of work that they to be fair to them, that was going to pay off this summer, and hopefully that goes into the start of next season. But some of the pitches in early part of the season are so difficult, and you're picking up a lot of injuries. So it's finding the balance, because the challenge is where when we were playing, or when I was certainly playing, Gareth, is the clubs were getting a chance they probably sand-based their pitch in the summer. They were like doing all this bits and pieces and was preparing it for winter. Now they have no room to manoeuvre to get like 30 ton of sand into their pitch or whatever, and they're not getting that. So it is a problem. And maybe some short-term pain and with pitches will but we all think the league should be extended a little bit, but there's only spec for maybe 1 or 2 more weeks. Nothing else more.
The way Stephen Bradley talks as well, is there a 2-tier system in operation even within the Premier Division right now, that a lot of the clubs lower down will be looking at this? And again, even around pitch and facilities, that Shamrock Rovers work out of a council operated pitch, that they're able to put a level of investment into making sure.
So 2 weeks ago on a Monday morning, I drove past Tallaght Stadium and I seen approximately 15 workers in on the pitch. I don't think any other club that isn't council run could have anything like that. So it's on a different level and it's brilliant, and we all want it, and hopefully. And the other thing is, Rovers are operating off a level now where I expect Rovers this year and next year to be in the group stage of Conference League unless they get a bit bad luck. So they will have 3 years in a row. So they're in a different stratosphere. But what comes with that is a little bit of pain, but also what comes with that is finance to be able to manage that pain. And when you look at Shamrock Rovers squad, they're capable of making 7-8 changes. And
that's
not
the one thing that struck
team.
me. I hadn't even thought of the pitch thing until we started talking about it. But actually, Shamrock Rovers squad is so strong, and there's so much depth right now that actually I wonder, has Stephen Bradley's thoughts on playing in between European games changed over the last few years? Whereas once upon a time they wanted the rest, whereas now actually them playing Derry on Sunday isn't the worst thing, because they can change their squad, they can rotate it, they can keep everybody happy, and they can keep everyone sharp.
Look,
whereas Shelburne are having to make 8 changes last night because they're thinking, well, we need to try and qualify for Europe again next season, so they're almost having to prioritise the Sligo game for their squad. And Rovers have such a level of depth that there's a 2-tier system in the Premier Division emerging, and as Stephen Bradley himself said, you have a situation then where you have part-time teams in the First Division who he feels are holding the whole thing back.
Yeah, because they have a vote, and so it is really it's probably not even a 2-tier. It's probably one club, and you'll imagine that if Pats get through this round, Stephen Kenny will start complaining about fixtures as well. Outside of that, I don't think anyone else will. I remember once playing 18 games in 53 days, and our players got on with it because you were playing big games. You were playing games that you want to play in, and it's part of it, and you can only make so many changes and different things. It's part of it. It's a first world problem. The rest of the league are looking, going, I mean, you can make 10 changes if you want, and they're probably looking at Bradley going, here he goes again a little bit. So I think there's a fine balance with it. I think we could extend by a week or two, but got to be careful that we can't run the league just for Shamrock Rovers, because we expect them to qualify constantly, and hopefully they do when we want them to do that for conference football.
Exactly, the coefficient, absolutely, but we can't have a stage where this is a league where everyone's playing for second place, and that's what you're running the risk of doing. You cannot have that, or Scotland, where 2 teams just pull away and it's everyone else for the rest. And you might think it's stupid, right? But investment in a pitch, in a groundsman, that's where you spend money. And for me, too many clubs are just hell bent on spending money on agency fees, on players' wages, bringing them in, instead of investing in the proper stuff, the foundational stuff, which Shamrock Rovers have done. I mean, if you've got an option to play for a team that has got a crap pitch or a team that's got a really good pitch, you're going to pick the really good pitch, and you basically ply your trade in. So we've got to be very careful of that with the clubs. They've got to be, I don't know whether it's government funding to maintain the pitches and the facilities to be able to come up to a proper standard.
But do you not think, Gareth, like, for the last few years, there's always been talk, when Dundee qualified for Europa League, there was, that's them going to dominate for years, etc. And you always eventually come back to the pack. This is different. Because European football last year, this Conference League is set up now. Let's say they earned, we'll rough figures, 5 million last year into the bank. I think there's a fair chance, I hope they do it again this year, 10 million in prize money. And if they go in next year as champions, they're red hot favourites to go again. That's potentially in 3 years 15 million in your bank account. That is now you're getting to the stage where it is a one-team league for the foreseeable future and could go on to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of dominance. We are very close to that. And it seems ironic we've just come away from the most competitive league we've had in 20, 30 years, but we're heading into a prolonged period of dominance. And people have said that for years. I never believed it, but this is different now. The money Rovers are about there is not astronomical.
And Vinny, this is different because of the structures they have in place in the foundation. All respect to Dundalk, they had none of what Shamrock Rovers had. It was a manager, players, and a decent fan base. The foundation of everything else wasn't there. But Shamrock Rovers as well, they have got people and processes and procedures in place to dominate. But the one thing that I wouldn't like to see happen is, think about it, 20 years ago, they were nearly in administration. So the other clubs can get there, but we just need to give them a helping hand and give them encouragement to get there in a short period of time. Because at the minute, I look at maybe 1, 2 clubs, to me, that can really long-term challenge Shamrock Rovers. That's it. The rest of them are nowhere near it.
Let's talk about what's happened over the past week, because there's been a lot going on. Cork City, dear God, talk about raining, pouring. It's like a bloody tsunami coming towards them, it feels like, at the moment. When they lose to Sligo Rovers, it looks as though they're absolutely doomed now to relegation. They're 11 points behind Sligo. Sligo are very much looking above them now. Sligo are the form team in the league. They've won 3 of their last 5, unbeaten in those 5 games. Cork host Galway United tomorrow night, and even if they win that, and maybe you try and bring Galway United back into it, they're still 11 points behind. Then they come out of that game against Sligo to the news that Cathal O'Sullivan has ruptured his ACL, and it's a personal sporting tragedy for him with what awaited over the next 12 months and potentially a move to a Premier League club. You have all sorts of issues going on in terms of the transfers, Mbeng going to Shelburne, Dijksteel going to St Mirren now rather than the end of the season. What can Ger Nash do in this situation, Vinny? And is Ger Nash now, a couple of months into this appointment, was he the right appointment considering the type of job? He's clearly, very highly regarded as a football coach, but managing a team in this level of strife and crisis requires a different type of personality.
Harsh, but I sort of have said it for a number of weeks in a diplomatic way. They've hired people that their manager and assistant manager haven't had first team experience. They've had big clubs, and obviously their assistant manager has played at really high level, and we all really highly regard him. But the solution to their problem was a League of Ireland. It needed to be a League of Ireland solution. They haven't done that. They're still playing. I mean, I've said it numerous occasions. They're still playing an academy way because they're being coached by 2 people who are, in their football experience, is academy football. There was a League of Ireland solution, had to be. They could have easily found one, and they went this direction, and they've made an ultimate mistake. And they've gone from being, under Tim Clancy, very competitive week in, week out, losing, by the odd goal, but not making the errors they're making over the last couple of weeks. And I've referenced it 2 weeks in a row previously. The goal against Waterford just typifies everything about academy football, splitting your 2 centre halves, the width of the pitch, rolling the ball into midfield with the number 6 coming towards you. Boom, you're robbed and you're 1-0 down in Munster Derby. Like, what is all that about? That's so. Unfortunately, they made, maybe it could have been the right appointment, but they've made the at the wrong time. They put the wrong manager in at the wrong time, and there's enough people who knew this league that could have made Cork competitive. They may still have went down, but they've become so uncompetitive that you have to say they've made a huge error in terms of their appointment of the next manager a while back, because it's gone all wrong.
Fully enough, Gareth, he may well be the right manager though for next season.
But that's a different argument. That's a different discussion.
it's a different discussion, but listen, Gerard Nash can do nothing about players getting transferred out of the club. I mean, that's good from the club's point of view, that the players are good enough to step up and move on. They can't do nothing about Cahill O'Sullivan. Yes, Vinny's right. He can start playing a more pragmatic way of playing football, which, in fairness, against Sligo, he was doing, and it was 2-0 up. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom with Cork. I think they're going to get relegated, absolutely. But I think they're better set up for next year, and I think he can be the man to bring them back up and be better equipped.
But do you not think they could have stayed up 2 months ago? Yeah, so then...
Yeah, they could have stayed up. They could have got an experienced manager and stayed up. But where would they have been then? You know what I mean?
Still, in the Premier Division?
In the Premier Division.
A chance. Yeah, I know.
And who comes up? So think about it, Gareth. So say they had stayed up ahead of Sligo. Who comes up? Dundalk. Dundalk, have they got the money to go full-time? Probably not. Cork are full-time. So then second season, you end up in the playoff and you stay up. That's 2 years in a row. And you're building. Like, it is a disastrous season for them. And going down, they'll probably bounce back up because of the quality. But ultimately, they've lost 12 months of building. Instead of being 2 years a Premier Division club, they're going to be an up and down yo-yo club. And they've made an absolutely disastrous decision a while back, and it's coming back to bite them in the backside. But
that was a decision that was forced upon them by Tim Clancy's decision to leave. So they weren't looking to change. As you say, Tim Clancy had made them competitive, knows the league inside out.
But like, it feels like I'm attacking Gerard Nash here, and maybe I am, and so be it. Like, sometimes you got to say what you think. But like, we didn't have the same disharmony from the squad as we had under Tim Clancy as we're having now. I mean, the disharmony in that group is off the charts.
How do we know that?
Well, players fighting over who take penalties. Players are leaving under a cloud. He listened to his press conference after games. He's throwing players under the bus. They don't want to be here. The players are leaving earlier than they should have. Instead of managing the group and getting the very best out of people until the end of the season. If you're going to move on, okay, finish the end of the season with me, sell the guys the dream. It's gone the other way. He's throwing players under the bus, and it's been a bit of a shit show, has to be said, from a administration of the club. We all know that story. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it doesn't look good. They've priced their fans out of the ground. And now they're playing their fans out of the ground by what they're producing. So ultimately, the manager does have to take responsibility. This is not academy football anymore. It's big boy football. And Cork are suffering. And I think it's wrong. The second city in this country have enough about them to build a side capable of staying in the Premier Division. And what they've done is they've ruined it, and they've set themselves back a couple of years instead of just giving themselves a chance to survive. And people need to hold their head in shame the way they've carried that club over the last 12 months.
All is not well in Cork, but one thing you need is Cork City in the Premier Division. So Gerard Nash, I mean, there's no point in getting rid of him now for a start. They need to stick with him. He needs to get the squad together. The owners need to get the fans on board and need a proper unity. And maybe that means going down to the first division and come back up, or they could be stuck there for a couple of years. That's the big challenge they'll have next year.
On the other side of things, then, what Sligo have managed to do under John Russell, what are you seeing, Vinny, from Sligo that's sparked this resurgence? Where really, I think worst case scenario now is the playoff, and they certainly have their eyes on Galway United.
They've done everything that Cork City haven't done. They've left. Obviously, the manager now, not to go back to Cork, but Tim Clancy left, I get that. But they have a guy who understands League of Ireland, who signed League of Ireland based players. You look at Ryan O'Kane's winner the other day, a perfect example of somebody who's played Premier Division football, knows who he's up against, knows going down to the shed and all that stuff. They've signed League of Ireland quality. McMahon is from Bowes as well, has come in and done really well. They've just signed players that understand what it takes to get over the line and understand that actually we might lose a game or two, but all we need to do is just chip away at results and how to turn those sort of difficult games like 2-0 down in Cork into a victory. And they've done that. So the manager completely understands League of Ireland. He completely understands what it takes, and he's gone and got the job done. And
results obviously dictate everything. So we talk about Gerard Nash and the way he's spoken about some of the players who were trying to get out early and not stay till the end of the season and don't have that loyalty to the club. How do you compare that to what happened with Conor Malley at Sligo, who arguably is their best player, who, for the game against Shamrock Rovers, from there on, it was clear that John Russell didn't have any time for him.
Yeah, and you live and die by your decisions. To be fair, John Russell, you could say, managed that well, but he would probably. I mean, I remember Mick McCarthy saying to me as part of the pro license, saying, "Manage fellas out the door, not like this thing of throwing fellas into reserve teams or under 20s. By and large, doesn't work. It's manage them out the door, tell them they're a great fella, and soon as they walk out the door and sign for someone else, give them a kick up the arse." So, look, you're right. Results are helping that decision John made, but it doesn't mean it's always the right decision. At the moment, it looks a good decision. Malley hasn't covered himself in glory. He goes to Shamrock Rovers now, who we'll find out, because I don't think he can walk into that dressing room and not do the hard work or the hard yards that are needed. He obviously, Rovers wanted him. He felt Sligo should have let him go, and Sligo said no, we shouldn't. They had him under contract, so Sligo won that battle for the time being.
And is that just football? Because Stephen Bradley was talking about this yesterday, that he had a long conversation with the player. He had spoken to different people to see that he was a good lad, that that throwing the toys out of the pram wasn't just a part of his character, his personality. Is that just football, that sometimes deals don't work out? The way he reacted at Sligo doesn't necessarily mean he's going to react like that at Shamrock Rovers if he's not getting picked for big European games? Or does he have a little bit to prove?
He probably has a little bit to prove now because the floodlights on it, but it's life. People aren't, you're not a bad lad if you do something in your job one day and you don't agree with your boss. Like, it's part of life. As I said, the challenge is you can have the odd one of them in every group. You can have two or three of them. My point around Cork is it just looks like there's nobody's on the same page. But John Russell has probably feels he has won that argument, but ultimately he's lost. He's lost a player. He's gone to Rovers, who effectively have a free shot now to see if he's good enough or not. And then ultimately come the end of the season, they'll decide whether or not to sign him. So he's lost a player of real quality.
He's lost a player of real quality, but obviously the relationship had broken down, and he used him to set a precedent to the rest of the squad. They say, listen, what Conor was giving us is not good enough and will not be tolerated. I mean, I've seen it happen in many a changing room. A new manager comes in, the first thing he does is gets rid of a talented player that maybe just doesn't work hard enough, and sets down a marker for the rest of the squad. I mean, look what he's brought in out of that. I mean, you've got Kieran Harkin, James McManus, Patrick McGlynn in the centre half. These are boys that no League of Ireland will give you 8, 9 out of 10 every week, have points to prove. I mean, and that's essentially why Sligo have been so good. They've got hungry players that want to prove a point.
You look at the signing of McLean, you think of the two big goals he's got over the last couple of weeks, the headers. And Cork went after Fikra Kelleher, who's been playing a decent, probably a better standard than McLean over the last couple of years. But McLean knew what it takes to play League of Ireland football, and you compare them two signings and you say, Russell knowing the character, McLean goes, he's the one for me. We need to, both of them teams, when we done what they need to sign, both, we mentioned they needed a centre half. And look at the difference between what Sligo have got.
Well, it's funny, like Fikra Kelleher could arguably end up being a better long-term signing.
That's not the point, though.
The problem Cork have is there is no long-term.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. And not only that, I mean, if you look at goals, I mean, McLean's got 2. Gareth McElroy, who he's basically replaced, has scored 2 goals in 6 or 7 games as well. Sligo can shoot themselves out of a playoff position, or if they end up in the playoff position, they can score goals. You look at the difference between the goals that Galway have scored and the players, and Sligo. Sligo is far, far superior. And not only that, the style of play they have as well was just it encourages good footballers to go there and want to play for them.
Gareth, before we finish up, I do want to touch on what happened last Friday night at the Ryan McBride Stadium around the game between Derry and Bohemians, and there have been plenty of statements since, and it does seem there's been a coming together of the two clubs to try and improve relations, but there have been consistent issues for away supporters going to Derry for many years at this stage. As somebody who's at the games, who loves the club. What's your view on what's happening in and around the stadium on match day?
Well, the whole fracas and basically coming together, they weren't football fans. That was not football fans. What happened? I got caught up on it on the way to the stadium along with my 2 children. It was embarrassing what was going on. Young children pretending to fight each other, causing mayhem to passers-by and proper fans going to the stadium. It was disgusting. These people are idiots. In relation to the problems in the Brandywell, the Shamrock Rovers match and the Bows match, there's been 2 big issues. It's something that the club have got to take responsibility for. They've got to get, and I understand that outside the stadium it's hard to police, but you've got to make an effort at creating a safe environment, whether it be channels of getting into the stadium and out of the stadiums. It's got to improve. It's got to get better. Mark Scanlon was at the game. He's fully aware of it. The FEI are fully aware. Bows obviously came out with the joint statement. It's got to improve. There's no question about it. But unfortunately, and let me tell you, I was there and I was watching them. These are 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids that are causing, they are less than 1% of the people that were in the Brandywell. They are a nuisance to Derry City and to the surrounding area. So they need to be, basically it needs to be better from the club. But inside the stadium, it was fine. It was fine during the match until the very end. There was an issue getting the Bows fans out of the stadium. But yeah, disgusting scenes.
Yeah, it's clearly a greater social issue around what's happening at the moment. Can the club impact on that, do you feel?
And sorry, just before you answer that.
No, let me answer that question. It's something that's creeping back into football. We've seen it in the Shells Bows game as well, in the Shells Pats game. There's been other issues. It's creeping back, and I honestly hadn't seen it in a while, but it's creeping back, and it is a social problem. To me, the clubs have a social responsibility. It should be part of their plan. It should be part of their overall ethos. So it is a club problem. You cannot, and I've seen it in media outlets, say that the community outside the ground should be policing this. That's absolute nonsense, lazy journalism. It's part of everyone's problem, because the thugs that were there because of the football game.
Yeah,
so
but Gareth, sorry, and what I wanted to ask you is, I've been in the Brandywell hundreds of times. It's brilliant. Once you're inside, really respectful people, and love it, okay? But when you leave the ground and you come out of the big car park beside the dog track and you go down the hill, you don't entirely feel 100% safe, particularly on a bus, until you've probably crossed the bridge and you're coming back out the road. That's a challenge if you're in your mind, because of the history of buses getting stones and different bits and pieces. Happened to us a few years back where one of the windows was done. That has to be addressed, and the club have got to go to somebody. And I understand the political side of getting the PSNI involved. I understand that. But until we sort that issue between that leaving the ground and getting onto what we perceive as a safe road back to Dublin or wherever you're going, Dundalk or that, there's an issue there that has to be addressed, and we can't hope it goes away. So somebody's got to get a grip of that. And I accept your point about lazy journalists, but we've got to go to the local representatives and ask for a hand there, Derry do, or something has to give, because I always felt a little bit uneasy until I got back across the bridge and was on the road once I left the ground.
There's no doubt about it, Vinny. It's a complex situation, and there's no silver bullet here. It has to be a coming together of all parties. That's simply what it has.
What does that mean, Gareth? What does that come together?
If I had the answer, it's got to be the people, the PSNI, when they leave the stadium, there's got to be a clear, safe pathway for them to get on the bus and, as you say, get away. What that looks like, it's not my background. I have no idea. But what I will say is the club, the local community, the PSNI, the FEI, anybody that can help this has got to be, and then there's got to be the community. The club have got to engage with the community better. They've got to get to the bottom, the bottom of the social problem, the stigma that's involved in the supporters, this small, and I'm telling you now, 15, 20 people is all it is, this small minority of people causing this havoc. Because I tell you what, Derry City busted their arse to get back into the League of Ireland, and they're letting a crowd of idiots undermine it now.
All right, we got to leave it there for this week's League of Ireland podcast. We got lots coming up over the next week. We'll have updates tonight from Tala from Shamrock Rovers in the Conference League. We will have full live commentary tomorrow night from Dalymount Park. Bohemians against Drogheda United, 7:45 kickoff. We're on the air from 7 with Stephen Doyle and Richie Towell. Cameron will be along with the lads on League of Ireland Late Night on Twitter Spaces from 10. And we'll have updates throughout the weekend as well. So you can check out our social channels for all that. Vinny, Gareth, thank you as ever.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.
The League of Ireland pod.
On Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the refreshingly alcohol-free Rockshore 00. Get the facts. Be drink aware. Visit drinkaware.ie.